This is CBC Here and Now.
At first blush, these expenditures are very concerning.
Under investigation.
The province digs into the expenses of the head of the French school board. Guilty for dangerous driving.
But the charge of threatening politicians has been dropped.
Right now is the highest price that we've ever fished for in my career and in anyone's career in Newfoundland.
Crab prices hit record highs and quotas are up.
Looks like a good year ahead for one of the most valuable fish products. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes.
The head of the French school board is under investigation for racking up close to $110,000 in travel expenses over 3 years. Now, receipts show that Christensen stayed at least 8 times at Toronto's Ritz-Carlton, including one 5-night stay that cost $1,500. She traveled in business class at least 6 times without getting the upgrade approved by the education minister. The provincial treasury board requires that kind of approval. And she rented larger SUVs like the Audi Q5 when the transportation policy says workers are required to rent compact or subcompact cars unless given express permission from the deputy minister.
At first blush, these expenditures are very concerning. I will say that there are times that there are no hotel rooms available other than a higher priced room, or there are times that there are a shortage of rental vehicles, but that is absolutely the exception, not the general rule. These expenditures certainly seem to be concerning.
The French school board is defending the travel expenses as reasonable and necessary, saying Christensen only stayed at luxury hotels for specific meetings or when stays came to a similar cost, and that she flew business class when airlines gave her an upgrade or it didn't cost any extra money, and that she rented SUVs for safety. The board said that until recently, Christensen was responsible for recruiting Francophone teachers who are difficult to find, and that she traveled to meet deans at Francophone universities.
I've done travel budgets in this province for decades. I've seen nothing in what I've seen that causes me any problem whatsoever. And I'm a taxpayer, and I understand that people want to make sure that we squeeze every dollar that we can. That's what we do at our very small school board. We are very tight with money.
The Progressive Conservatives want to see legislation brought in to take power away from the French school board in order to get things in order.
That's our job, that's our role. If we're supposed to be guarding the public purse, that comes with the territory of being elected member of that legislature. 1 of 40, that's what we need to do.
Is currently working from home in Ontario, despite written and verbal requests from the Department of Education to return to work at the board's head office in St. John's. She moved at the beginning of the pandemic. No date has been set for her return or for the conclusion of the comptroller's investigation into her travel expenses.
Well, the opposition Progressive Conservative Party is reacting to the independent report that has called for the freeze on post-secondary education tuition to be lifted. Yesterday, the education minister said he's been hearing from taxpayers that too much of their money is being spent on keeping tuition low at schools like Memorial University and the College of the North Atlantic. Today, the opposition party's education critic said the Progressive Conservatives want to know if spending can be cut at post-secondary institutions before committing to a call for tuition increases.
I think we'd be foolhardy to say we can never change. It's been frozen since 2005. But right now, and it may very well be, obviously, most people will probably say it do need to go up, but I'd rather see the full picture of what month's spending and where the finances are before you can just say we're going to increase one without looking at the other.
All right, well, Ashley is off today, so I'm filling in for her. So let's start with a quick look at some weather on the way tonight and over the weekend. Some wet and windy weather moving in tonight. We have wind warnings in place for the west coast from Parsons Pond, Hawke's Bay down to Port aux Basques, including a wreck house wind warning. Gusts in that area could reach 140 kilometers an hour this evening, overnight tonight. So let's hope there won't be any transport trucks traveling through the wreck house area this evening. The remainder of of the west coast can expect winds gusting between 70 and 110 kilometers an hour. Now, we also have rain on the way along with strong winds for the rest of the island. Here's a quick preview of your weekend weather forecast. Mild temperatures on the island with a chance of showers or drizzle for the east and central tomorrow. The west can expect showers mixed with snow and some flurries in western Labrador. I'll get into all of those details later in the show.
A big jump in COVID-19 cases in the province today. While the number might give you a little bit of a shock, health officials say they're mainly connected to travel and that the people are isolating and there is no indication of any community spread. There are 8 new confirmed cases of COVID in the province today and 3 presumptive cases. Health officials say the increase is not surprising given increased travel to the province of late. Of the confirmed cases, all cases are men and all related to travel within Canada. 3 are in Eastern Health, 3 in Central, and 2 in Western Health. That makes for a total of 33 active cases in the province. Well, a company that typically deals with the oil and gas industry is marking a major milestone. DF Barnes pivoted during the pandemic, and this week it manufactured its 1 millionth mask. 12 months ago, the province was searching the globe for available PPE. DF Barnes teamed up with Eastern Health and Task Force NL to locate and purchase supplies abroad before deciding to make some for themselves. Now, at one point, more than 200 people in communities across the province were making masks and gowns for local healthcare workers. And when a St. John's designer saw the shortage, she jumped in to help.
I definitely took a couple of days to process what was happening here and around the world and stuff. And then just one day I said, I have all these supplies on hand. It's the least I could do. So I kind of just jumped into go mode then. My partner works in construction and he's been laid off for over a year now. So it's been really beneficial to have this shop and these resources and stuff to be able to do my part.
Well, police say the death in a Natwashish car fire last week was accidental. Several abandoned vehicles caught fire late last Friday behind the band council garage. Once the fire was put out, remains were found inside one of the burned vehicles. RCMP and the chief medical examiner have since identified the deceased, contacted the family, and ruled the death accidental. A drive-by shooting in Avondale early this morning. Police say someone pulled into a driveway and shot at the door and windows of a duplex on the Conception Bay Highway. Officers don't have a description of the vehicle. The Holyrood RCMP got the call around 11:30 this morning, but the gunfire happened hours earlier, around 4 o'clock in the morning. Police say this was targeted and that no one was hurt. They're asking anyone in the area to check their security cameras. The investigation continues.
The RNC has issued an arrest warrant for convicted killer Philip Pinn. The 35-year-old from Mount Pearl is wanted in relation to a theft that happened on the weekend. Investigators are advising people not to approach Pinn if he is seen in the community. Please contact the RNC or Crime Stoppers. Pinn has more than 100 convictions, most notably for shooting Nick Windsor in 2011. He was released 2 years ago, even though the parole board found him at high risk to reoffend. His case was in court 2 weeks ago for a breach of conditions and is due back in court next month. A man accused of threatening politicians early in the provincial election campaign has had some serious charges against him dropped. 67-year-old George Brake changed his plea to guilty for dangerous driving and fleeing police during a high-speed chase that happened near Deer Lake in late January. But the charges linked with threatening politicians and possession of weapons were dropped. Crown Attorney Trina Sims says there was no likelihood of conviction. Brake has been at the Waterford Hospital for most of the past few months. He was arrested in January after that high-speed chase where he allegedly threatened to execute politicians. He left his home in Bonbay and drove to Deer Lake. Police seized 36 knives from his truck at that time. Brake is back in court in 2 weeks.
Well, after several years of decline and uncertainty, the crab fishery, this province's most valuable seafood product, is on a roll, and a big one.
And as Terry Roberts reports, that has fish harvesters in a very upbeat mood this season.
Ever imagine what a nearly $400,000 payday looks like? Well, here it is, gliding into the wharf at Port de Grave. It's the Eastern Princess too, a name befitting royalty. And today her fish hold is crawling with a bounty fit for a king or a queen. A load of snow crab harvested from the ocean floor, nearly 200 miles offshore. A bounty so valuable that it's difficult for these hard-working crew members to hide their delight.
For me and my wife, this is a good way to put in another good year and a successful one for us, for sure.
Well, it'll help us get through the year and be financially stable for a different year. Like last year was a rough year, and this year is going to be a better year.
It's good news on multiple fronts. Record prices, higher quotas, and a troubled resource that, according to scientists, seems to be on the rebound.
We're seeing a lot of small crab, and the small crab is the future. So, and whether you're fishing from the like we left Ship Cove here 5 days ago, and you can go out there probably half a mile and you'll see eye flyers. So it's crab pots right now from a half a mile from this wharf right to the 200-mile limit, and the resource is good.
And when these folks are making good money, the entire economy benefits.
It's good for the businesses, it's good for the communities. Like, if you make money, you spend money.
The harvest opened at the beginning of April, a record price of nearly $6 a pound. But the Fisheries Union appealed to the fish price setting panel and won a jaw-dropping decision last Sunday. A new price of $7.60 for these long-legged, bottom-dwelling, and monstrous-looking shellfish.
Like every year, it's not like 2021 for the crab fishery. Like we've had years for $1 a pound and 50 cents a pound, $1.50 a pound, but right now is the highest price that we've ever fished for in my career and in anyone's career in Newfoundland.
The price is being driven by an unprecedented demand by U.S. consumers for crab at retail outlets, all part of the COVID-19 stay-at-home phenomenon that has practically wiped out the traditional restaurant market.
Okay. Basically, it's a good news story for the crab harvesters with a new market, and price is good, and so most of the fishes are, whether you're in a speedboat or in a 65-footer, is the same for everyone. Like, the prices are good and everyone is pleased with it.
The overall quota this year is over 38,000 tons, up nearly 30% from last year, setting the stage for what observers predict will be record landed values this year, perhaps as high as $500 million.
I think this will be the best year ever for the crab fishery in Newfoundland.
But things are rarely uncomplicated in the fishery. Now there are fears of a glut as boats rush to catch their quotas. There's talks of trip limits as plants struggle to keep up and maintain top quality. And harvesters like Nelson Bussey are not entirely opposed to some restrictions.
We got to make sure we put good product into the market and don't flood them. If we got to space it out, well, we'll do it.
There's also questions about how long these soaring prices will last. The association that represents crab buyers is not talking. Derek Butler is not taking calls these days from reporters like me. But insiders say to expect some pushback as the market fills up with all the crab that's being landed by boats like these. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, just following from what Terry was saying there, after days of looking for a reaction, we finally received a statement from the Association of Seafood Producers late this afternoon. And the ASP described the current price for crab as too high and said the fish price setting panel is a broken model.
Yeah, the ASP also raised concerns about the availability of workers in processing plants, saying a shortage of workers could lead to a delay in processing at some plants and in turn interrupt the purchasing of crab from harvesters. Looking pretty nice out there right now in St. John's, but we do have some wind and a lot of rain on the way tonight. What better way to end off this record-breaking rainy April than with more rain? I'll have more details coming up. Well, Ashley is off on this beautiful Friday, so I'm filling in for the weather for her. Let's start with a look at the highs today across the province. Nice temperatures on the island, pretty much double digits across the board. 10 degrees in St. John's, 13 degrees in the Stephenville area. Cooler up in Labrador, 7 degrees as the high in Lab City and Happy Valley Goose Bay. So here are the weather on the way headlines. We have some rain and we have some wind coming for the island tonight. We have a snow and rain mix for northern parts of the island and in parts of Labrador, and some mild temperatures coming tomorrow for the island. So let's have a look at how it's all going to play out. This is our satellite radar shot. You can see the rain on our doorstep moving in tonight. We have these wind warnings in place for the west coast. Just check out those winds for the Wreck House area. Gusts up to 140 kilometers an hour overnight tonight. So with that rain, it is going to be very messy in that area, and strong winds up along the west coast as well. Gusts between 70 and 110 kilometers an hour overnight tonight. And here is that rain moving through in the overnight hours. You can see some snow mixing in with that on the west coast. Some heavier patches of rain there on the Avalon Peninsula and eastern portions of the island. Some flurries up in the northern part of Labrador, and continuing on overnight tonight, you can see those showers turning into flurries for the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador, and patches of showers across the island tonight. So in terms of amounts, we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain for pretty much everyone on the island tonight. St. John's 2 degrees as the overnight low, and the winds pretty strong as well. Southeasterly 40, gusting up to 70, not as strong as the west coast there, particularly the Wreck House area. So we're looking at 10 to 20 millimeters in the Corner Brook area. St. Anthony is going to see that switch over from some showers into some snow overnight tonight, about 2 to 5 centimeters expected there. Along the Straits, 2 centimeters of snow there. For the rest of Labrador, Nain looking at some flurries tonight, 2 centimeters, and flurries as well for Labrador City with some pretty light northerly winds. So looking to tomorrow, Saturday, we have that mix of snow and rain for the west coast and parts of central and the south coast there. Patches of showers for the Avalon Peninsula and some cloudy skies throughout the day. Southeastern Labrador looking at some snowfall there and some flurries for Lab West. So temperature-wise, we're looking at double digits for the St. John's area. Those are the mild temperatures I mentioned a bit earlier, 11 degrees as the high with those showers throughout the day. And the winds are going to stay pretty strong, though, throughout the day tomorrow. Gusts up to 70 kilometers an hour. About 2 millimeters of rain expected for the Marystown area, and 7 degrees there as a high, so a little bit cooler there along the southern Avalon and on the coast. Clarenville looking at a high of 10 degrees with those showers tomorrow. And continuing on for central areas, 10 degrees for central and up along the northeast coast with those showers throughout the day. 2 millimeters of rain expected in the Harbor Breton area with 7 degrees as the high. And on the west coast, you can see the snow and rain mix once again. Some snow on the higher terrain and inland throughout the day. 5 millimeters of rain for the Corner Brook area. You can see the winds have eased. Easterly winds gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour, and temperatures cooling as you go up along the coast into the northern peninsula. 5 degrees as the high in St. Anthony tomorrow. That snow rain mix continues. 2 to 4 centimeters of snow for the Marys Harbor area, Cartwright area. Temperatures just above the freezing mark there at 3 degrees. For the rest of Labrador, Nain can expect some snowfall tomorrow, 2 centimeters with a high of 2 degrees. Similar story for Makkovik, but those winds staying nice and light, and northeasterly 20 kilometers an hour. And for the rest of Labrador, Lab City looking at about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow tomorrow. So that's a look at your tonight and tomorrow forecast. Coming up, I'll have a look at the long range and tell you what's in store for Sunday.
Well, thanks, Carolyn. Well, now to tell you about a spring cleanup campaign with a catchy name, the Butt Blitz. Now, let me explain. All this month, across the country, a determined group of volunteers is collecting discarded cigarette butts, and they've got an ambitious goal. Well, here's a look at what it takes.
Although I wish this beach was clean, it's going to help my team pick up the most butts because we're going to win. A Greener Future is a nonprofit that I started about 6.5 years ago, and the focus is litter cleanup and prevention. A lot of people think that cigarettes are made out of cotton and paper and that they're going to biodegrade, but they're not. They're actually made out of cellulose acetate, which is a type of plastic. So when they break down, they just break into smaller and smaller pieces. So it's something we want to keep away from wildlife, keep out of our drinking water. All through April, we've had about 160 volunteers across Canada. The goal is to pick up 5,000 cigarette butts over the course of the month. If everybody reaches their goal, there's a chance that we could pick up 1 million cigarette butts throughout the month. Oh, it smells awful. I don't normally keep these in my car. I brought them just for you. We recycle all the cigarette butts that we collect through a company called TerraCycle. $1 per pound that we send in comes back to support our program. Cigarette butts are kind of like the last piece of litter that is it's not necessarily condoned, but people kind of let it slide because people have been littering cigarette butts for so long that it's a habit for people. And habits are hard to break. We are now finding a lot of vape cartridges, so it may change that instead of cigarette butts, we end up picking up something else. But I'm looking forward to the day where it's hard to find a cigarette butt on the ground.
We can have that sense of security knowing that if something were to happen to our supply chain, we would be able to sustain ourselves.
Growing an industry starting in schools. Why this university student thinks schools should offer classes on agriculture. The agriculture industry on the West Coast got a boost this week with the announcement of a plan to lease 700 acres of Crown land to potato farmers. Well, our next guest sees big potential in increasing food production in the province, and she's calling for schools to introduce agriculture programming to the curriculum. 19-year-old Abigail Penny is one of 4 finalists in the Canada World Youth Innovation Challenge, and she's studying agriculture at Dalhousie University. She joins me now from Pasadena. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell us about your proposal to get students interested in agriculture. Why do you think food production should be taught in schools?
Yeah, so I believe that all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians deserve access to nutritional, affordable food. I think that Newfoundland has huge unmet potential for agriculture. And one of the steps we can take towards becoming a more self-sufficient province is educating our youth.
Yeah, well, food insecurity and sustainability are big problems in this province. Accessing healthy, affordable foods, like you say, is a challenge for vulnerable populations. How could growing the agriculture industry help with that?
Yeah, so when I think about this, I think back to the point in my high school career when my friends and I were considering what we might want to do in the future. And I'm really the only person I can think of that was even considering agriculture as a career option. And I think this was probably due to the exposure that I had had to it. So I think just by giving youth that exposure, it's something that they're more likely to consider.
Tell us about the exposure that you had to the industry.
So I've always been an animal lover, always surrounding myself by animals, and whether it was, volunteering at a shelter or horseback riding, I was always surrounded by animals. And then I also had a passion for cooking and baking, and I started to realize that I could connect those two things in the agriculture industry, and I started volunteering at farms such as Robin's Family Farm and Gardens, and that's where I gained a lot of exposure specifically around children in agriculture, and just realizing how little children knew about where their food came from, but how enthusiastic they were to learn.
And what about the idea of jobs and growing that economic potential on the island as well?
I kind of look at it as we're starting with a somewhat clean slate with agriculture, and Newfoundland and Labrador has the chance to do agriculture the right way, in a sustainable way from the start. So, we're going to produce agriculture, we're going to create jobs for people coming out of school, and we're going to inspire them to want to go into that workforce and potentially boost our food security, decrease transportation costs, and improve nutritional content.
And, the province, particularly the island, is in a pretty risky situation because we're an island, we rely so heavily on the transportation network to get food to our province. How will this help with that by growing the industry in the province?
You're definitely right. I think that the COVID-19 pandemic definitely gave us a bit of a wake-up call when we went into our original lockdown and we were all, at the store, should we buy, how much toilet paper should we buy, but also how much flour and yeast should we buy. So I think that, producing food in our hometown, not only just, producing it through the growing months and having somewhere to store it, we can have that sense of security knowing that if something were to happen to our supply chain, we would be able to sustain ourselves.
And what are your plans now? How are you going to try to turn this into a reality?
So currently I am trying to just make contacts with the right people in the education system who can give me their expertise on how to actually turn this into a reality. I recognize that there's a lot that I don't know about the school system and how it works. So I'm patiently awaiting my chance to speak with them.
Well, Abigail Penny, thank you so much for this and good luck.
Thank you so much.
And Abigail's success comes from her participation in the Canada Youth Innovation Project. I'm getting close anyhow, and congratulations to her. Now, staying with agriculture, a PEI project involving willow trees is yielding some surprising results. Environmental groups have been planting trees near farmers' fields in hopes that the roots will help the ecosystem, but they've been surprised to find that the plants are having an impact on more than just the soil. Sheehan Desjardins has that story from Charlottetown.
Alone, the willow is a pretty picture. But as a group, the Willow is a mighty force.
I'm hopefully helping out the stream or the river down below this willow tree project here.
Beside Green's potato field, over 700 willows are planted. The trees are part of a project done through several agriculture and environmental groups. The plan was to study how the plants could help the ecosystem.
Willows are particularly effective as natural straws.
The plants act as a buffer between the potato field and the waterway.
These are the root systems that are going to be capturing and storing those nutrients.
But that's not all the willows are good for.
Another thing that we hadn't really thought about is their ability to store huge amounts of carbon and capture that.
This is just one of 11 willow buffers on the island right now, 1 hectare in total. According to Murphy, every year those swallow about 29 tons of CO2.
29 tons of CO2 captured annually in the buffer would be equivalent to the emissions from 6 passenger vehicles.
Murphy says more research still needs to be done to understand what's happening below ground. That's where most of the greenhouse gas mitigation happens. But she says the more willows grown on the island, the mightier the system will be.
There you go. You've just planted a willow.
Murphy says if they're able to get more growers on board, there is potential to create a wood chip market once the trees are cut down. Those could then be used to heat buildings on some parts of the island. And back in central Badek, the farmer says plans are already underway to add 2 more plots of willows this summer. Chien Desjardins, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Premier of Nunavut is urging people in the territory to mask up and take precautions in the wake of a COVID outbreak. There are 67 active cases there, most of them located in Iqaluit.
I'm shocked by how many people around Iqaluit aren't wearing masks. Come on, guys, wear a mask, it works. You know what to do. Mask up every time you're outside your household. Wash your hands often. Keep strong physical distancing from others when you're outside. Stay home, get vaccinated. We know Moderna is effective against this variant of COVID, so make your appointment and protect yourself. And I thank all the Nunavut that are adhering to the public health measures and doing their part to stop this outbreak. Thank you.
Well, south of Nunavut, the dispute between Ottawa and Ontario over land border crossings is starting to heat up. Ontario wants tighter federal restrictions, but it appears the Prime Minister's answer is no. He defended the rules already in place. Trudeau says while the federal government is willing to consider requests, there is plenty that Ontario can do to tighten its own pandemic defenses.
We'll continue to work with the provinces, whether they want to look at rapid testing on arrival in airports across the country. We have in our possession millions upon millions of rapid tests that are being underutilized across the country, and would happily furnish some to Ontario or any other provinces that want to test people on arrival, but they will have to work out the logistics on how to actually test everyone. But it's something that has been done. We watched the Atlantic provinces severely limit domestic travel with very strong measures. We watched the Arctic territories doing the same thing to extreme success. And they didn't require the support or the intervention or the permission of the federal government to do it, although we were happy to support them in any ways we needed to. Ontario has lots of tools, and we will continue to work with them on bringing in the right tools to keep people safe through this difficult third wave.
This province is seeing a little jump in COVID cases. How much of a surprise is that for health officials? I'll answer some of your COVID questions coming up.
with cases climbing elsewhere and a spike in travel-related cases here, what can we expect next? And will the measures change at all? Well, let's bring in here now is Peter Cowan to give us some context on all this. Peter, let's start with today's cases. We have 8 new cases plus 3 presumptive cases. How surprising is all of this for health officials?
I know it's raising lots of eyebrows for people at home, but it does make some sense in the context that as cases rise in the rest of the country, we're going to see more cases than people who are traveling back and forth, especially for work. So the province did highlight that they're seeing more people coming into the province. They didn't give a breakdown of why that is, but the timing does line up with when university and college classes are wrapping up elsewhere in the country and students return. They may have had to do in-person learning for many institutions in the rest of the country. So that could be contributing to the number. We also know about 1/3 of the travel is rotational workers. And as we see places like Fort McMurray with a lot of cases tied to camps there and a big spike, we could expect to see that some of those workers, when they come home, they're going to test positive as well. And we heard from Dr. Janice Fitzgerald at the briefing this week that she does expect this province to see more cases, which is what we saw today.
The prevalence across the country, combined with more variants of concern at this time, means we've really never been at more risk than we are right now. We just need to look to the west to see how quickly things can spiral out of control and how devastating the consequences can be. Individuals with COVID are contagious before they have symptoms, and by the time a case is detected, it has likely already spread to close contacts and beyond. We can never be certain where the virus is or where it is not. The 2 most important things that everyone can do is to keep their contacts low and be diligent in adhering to public health guidance.
And I guess the other question is going to be, what is the province going to do to address what you heard Dr. Fitzgerald there talk about as being this big risk that we have right now? And she said everything is on the table, everything is being considered. So what could that mean? Well, if we look at the rest of Atlantic Canada, in New Brunswick, they brought in a quarantine hotel. Doesn't apply to rotational workers, but does apply to students, people moving to the province. Anyone coming in has to spend a week at a hotel at their own expense and get tested several times. PEI is now testing everyone who enters and has to quarantine. They do it 3 times. And she did hint that more testing is likely coming. But exactly how they do that is still up in the air. But as early as next week, Anthony, we could start to see what they decide to do and how they try and implement that in this province.
Okay, so Peter, a lot of the focus is on vaccinations. Give us an update on where we are, and when we look at the groups that are being vaccinated now, such as rotational workers that you mentioned, as well as other people with health issues that can make them vulnerable, what kind of verification is happening now?
Let's start with the numbers, Anthony. So the latest numbers are there are 170,000 doses that have been administered, which is about 160,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who've had at least 1 dose of the shot. And over the last week or so, we've averaged about 3,600 vaccinations a day. And that is expected to increase over the next couple of weeks as more doses arrive in the province. Right now, those 2 groups you mentioned, they can go online, you can book your shot. But a lot of the questions that I've had from people is, well, how do they know that you're a rotational worker? How do they know that you are going through chemotherapy or have an immune deficiency or something like that? Because you don't have to bring a pay stub or a letter from your doctor. You just check off that box online. And in person, they just ask you for proof of who you are, things like your MCP card. The minister said it's very much running just on the honor system.
Our aim is to vaccinate as many people as we can, given our vaccine supply. And really and honestly, it is on the honour system. If you are not a rotational worker and you choose to jump the queue, then is a rotational worker who's been left behind for a week or so.
Now, the province didn't explain why they aren't requiring some sort of verification on this, except for the fact that, first of all, they do want everyone to get vaccinated. It's just, how quickly they do it. But it's also the complication of if you required everyone who, had a medical condition, for example, it means they'd have to go to their doctor. It's going to take up extra capacity in the healthcare system just to get that verification. And same sort of thing with requiring letters from employers. And Anthony, I think the concern here is that some folks could get left out and they just sort of get frustrated and they don't get the vaccination when ultimately they want everyone to try and get it.
Right. Okay. Listen, thanks, Peter. Appreciate that.
Anytime.
Well, time now for a look at the long-range forecast, but I want to start by mentioning once again these warnings that are in place for the West Coast because it's going to be very windy, particularly in the Wreck House area overnight tonight. Gusts up to 140 kilometers an hour there. Your tomorrow temperatures looking quite nice. 11 degrees in St. John's tomorrow. Those winds are staying pretty strong in the east. Southwesterlies gusting up to 70 kilometers an hour. And you can expect some rainfall throughout the day on the island. For the Corner Brook area, could see a mix of rain and snow. Some snow on the higher terrain and the easterly wind 20 gusting to 40. So for Labrador tomorrow, some flurries for the Nain area as well as for Labrador City, about 2 to 4 centimeters expected there tomorrow with temperatures between 2 and 4 degrees for the Big Land. So looking ahead Saturday night, we have some snow, some flurries continuing for parts of the West Coast. We have a bit of rain that's going to be moving through early Sunday morning for the Burin Peninsula, and those flurries continuing for northern Labrador. So Sunday, this is 11 a.m. You see that we could see a couple of maybe light showers early on Sunday, and mostly cloudy for the island throughout the day, and for Labrador, some flurries for the west. So Sunday, looking like a really nice day, 11 degrees in St. John's with a mix of sun and cloud, and a mix of sun and cloud for pretty much the entire island on Sunday. So a nice day to get out for sure. For Labrador, flurries continuing for the Nain area and for Labrador City with some, a high of 0 degrees there. So looking ahead to Monday, it's going to be a wet start to the work week for much of the island. Could also see that mix of snow and rain as well for some parts of the island. 8 degrees as the high on Monday for St. John's. Grand Falls, Windsor, 7 degrees. So a little bit of messy weather there on Monday. Happy Valley, Goose Bay could see some showers on Monday with a high of 8 degrees and 4 in Lab City with some flurries. Pushing ahead now to Tuesday into Wednesday, the coast is going to see that rain-snow mix continuing there. And for the island, looking quite nice into Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. So here's your 5-day forecast, 12 degrees on Tuesday. So that's shaping up to be quite a nice looking day there. Moving into Central, we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures in the double digits, so looking quite nice. For Western Labrador, could see some showers on Tuesday and then clearing on Wednesday with 11 degrees as the high for Labrador. Now looking at some rain on Tuesday and Wednesday for the eastern portion, and for the west, looking at some cloudy skies on Tuesday. Temperatures bumping up to 5 degrees there, and some messy weather coming there on Wednesday. So normally for a viewer picture of the day, we like to show you sunsets and sunrises, but I just really had to share this one with you. Yes, this is Baron the dog, and Baron has not been very happy about all of the record-breaking rain that we've had in April, so I thought that this was just too cute not to share with you. Thank you to Donna Piercy in Fortune for sending us in this adorable photo.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
Well, it's time for birthdays and anniversaries. Happy 60th anniversary to Bob and Dorothy Yetman, formerly from Southern Bay, now living in Clarenville. 59th wedding anniversary greetings to Harvey and Mary Luffman in Harbour Grace. Happy 50th anniversary to Bob and Louis Foss in Embry. Happy 58th anniversary to Baden and Genevieve Hiscock from Carbonear. Happy 62nd anniversary to Job and Rosetta Sainsbury in Cartwright, Labrador.
Fred and Minnie Randall are celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary. Congratulations. Happy 60th wedding anniversary to Rex and Jenny Piercy from Heart's Content, now living in CBS. Happy 55th anniversary to Ronnie and Evelyn Glenn. Happy 53rd anniversary to Mary and Lou Noseworthy from Mount Pearl. Happy 63rd wedding anniversary today to Cyril and Clara Troke in Paradise.
Happy 68th anniversary to Alistair and Janine Chapman, originally from Benton, now living in Gander. Happy 60th anniversary greetings to Norman and Lottie Childs in York Harbour. Happy 50th wedding anniversary tomorrow to Barb and Colin Forward in Bayvert. Happy 53rd anniversary to Delano and Doreen Rose in Clarenville. Happy 70th anniversary to Mitt and Ruby Guzny of Deer Lake. Happy 55th anniversary to Paul and Elizabeth Moore.
Happy 61st anniversary to Zach and Enid Daw of Long Pond. Aiden and Gloria Noonan of Beta Verde will celebrate their 52nd wedding anniversary on Monday. Happy 55th anniversary to Pierce and Sheila Reed from Chapel Arm. Happy 61st anniversary to Max and Joyce Rose in St. John's. Now on to some birthdays, starting with the big one. Happy 101st birthday to Ida Pete. Happy 93rd birthday to Doris West in Gander.
And birthday greetings to John McKay of Stephenville, who is celebrating his 91st birthday. Happy 91st birthday as well to Ethel Keeping in Grand Beach. Happy 96th birthday today to Ethel Fillier. And happy 98th birthday to Rufus Hutchings, originally from Cowhead, now living in St. John's.
Happy 94th birthday to Elizabeth Croft. Birthday greetings going out to Mary T. Ryan in Chapels Cove. She's celebrating her 96th birthday. Happy 93rd birthday to Flora Canning from Newstead. And a big happy 104th birthday to Lucy Woodland in St. John's. Another fine crowd.
Yeah.
Congratulations to everyone once again.
And while we're celebrating, we also have some big milestones to mark tonight ourselves. 3 of our CBC Newfoundland and Labrador colleagues are about to embark on yet another adventure: retirement.
Yes, videographer Bruce Tilley has been with the CBC for an incredible 40 years. And this week, our Terry Roberts turned the tables on Bruce and pointed the camera in his direction. And we're glad he did. Just have a look.
What I always do with a guest is I have them introduce themselves first. So give us a good introduction of yourself.
My name is Bruce Tilley. I've been working at CBC for 40 years.
And Bruce, what was those 40 years? If you were to describe what the experience has been like, put it into words for us.
Well, getting out and meeting some really fine people like the kind of people we met here today, I mean, it's fantastic. There's just great people all over this island and all over this country.
And post-retirement, Bruce Tilley, what does that look like?
Well, my number one goal is to go visit my son who's in the United States, hasn't been home because of this COVID pandemic. So I hope to get vaccinated pretty soon and go visit him in Ohio.
Okay, and final words?
It's been a great ride.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Gonna miss you, Bruce.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations, Bruce, on your retirement. And as we said, there are 3 retirements.
After 33 years, Damien Morrissey, who runs what we call our media center, he's also retiring, and that center is critical. It's where we ingest and put all the video that reporters and camera people bring to us, which allows us to then share it with you at home. And we're going to miss you, Damien.
Yeah, we are, Damien. And another big announcement, Terry Windsor, director and sound engineer with CBC Radio, is also hanging up his hat after 40 years.
Terry is the calm force behind the soundboard in our radio studio. He's the director of On the Go as well as the broadcast. An incredible recording engineer. I've had many great live radio jobs with him, and he is an institution here at the CBC.
Absolutely. We are definitely sorry to see him go, but we're wishing Terry and all of our retirees the very best in their new adventure.
Yeah, big smiles there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. 3 in one day. So Carol and I will continue working to pay for your pensions. As you leave the CBC on this Friday, but it's been really good. I'm thinking you and I both work with Bruce. I mean, I've seen Bruce hang upside down from scaffolding to try to get the right shot. I've seen Terry mix 6 different band and instruments, and Damien, well, Damien's in a class of his own. Mr. Smiles, always welcoming. So 3 great guys, and we're going to miss all of you and wish you the very best.
Yep, for sure. And before we leave you tonight, we're going to have a quick look at the weather forecast, another little recap of our weekend outlook. Looking like a decent weekend on the island. Sunday looking like the better day, really. Some showers expected for the St. John's area tomorrow, 11 degrees on Saturday and Sunday, and double digits as well for Central. Some messy weather in Corner Brook, a mix of snow and rain, 6 degrees as the high there. So that's a little look at what you can expect this weekend.
All right, and anyway, I'm coming back on Monday. I hope to see you, Carolyn. And
I will be here.
And Ashley will be back then too. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.
Good night, everyone.